Hello there, YouTubers. I am here to give you my top favorite, and note is just before we start the video, I, Quint866, have something to say. This list of top, not 5, not 10, not 15, but 20 PS2 games will not be the best. They'll be the best ones that I know of. And also, some of them will include, some gems that were not really remembered as well as some of the other famous gems on the PS2. Let's get started then, shall we? About now. Good old-fashioned Kingdom Hearts. Not the final mix, but the original. Now, I'll be honest with you guys, Kingdom Hearts was a great game. I loved it, it was amazing, but there was just one thing that really didn't cut it, and that was the fact that it wasn't the best game for Kingdom Hearts on the PS2. It's very complicated to say, but although the original is pretty good, it at least gets a spot on this list. And I know some of this might bring some, uproar, but honestly, Kingdom Hearts, the original, wasn't as good as the final mix for the PS3, that is, or Chain of Memories and 2. But I'll say this though, the game itself isn't bad, it just I found some of the other games a little more attention grabbing, but I will give it this. Kingdom Hearts 1 was amazing, but some of the newer games had better functions. However, Chain of Memories won't get a spot on this list because the card-based combat, which is a major complaint. It's kind of not easy having card-based combat in a Kingdom Hearts game when you're used to, having the command deck or whatever. So it's just kind of awkward. Anyways, about the game itself, Kingdom Hearts is amazing. It's about how he plays Sora through his quest. I'm not going to say any spoilers, but it's amazing. If you haven't played it yet, you got to play it. It's amazing. Anyways, that's that for Kingdom Hearts, and let's move on. Oh look, another Disney game okay, this game, The Haunted Mansion, I heard from a friend at my school, and honestly, I looked up some footage of it, and honestly, it looks pretty good. And for a Disney game, it has quite a dark concept, like collecting souls, and honestly, that's kind of a dark concept. Also, for a Disney game, this has some, how do I put this? They put it in a very, non-kiddie manner. This game, I don't think was made for kids. There was some very intense horror in this game. I'm sure the gameplay was only a 69% good, but honestly, it was pretty good otherwise. It was a Disney game that was actually kind of novel to see that took a new turn on the Disney's company. Also, Disney was amazing in this game. I love how much creativity they put into it. But it does lose some points though, because I've heard some bad stuff about it, like how it was a little too graphic for children, because it's called Disney, and people thought, hey, it might be a good little Halloween thing for the children. Well, it really wasn't. But I'll say this though, I heard about this from a friend at school, and I'm so glad he told me about this game, because this game is a novel, classic horror gem, kind of cheesy horror gem as well, but it's just there. It has to be there. That's that, and next. Now this was a game I remember. Well, more or less a collection of games. This had some of my favorite Capcom games. Capcom has some of my favorite games. Mega Man, Street Fighter, 1942. I love Capcom's original games. However, though, this does lose some points for not having any Mega Man in it. Sure, it has some games that are like Mega Man, but Mega Man is Capcom's signature game. Come on, you can't be Capcom without Mega Man. But, however, Street Fighter is a close second. So I guess you can be Capcom without Mega Man, but it just wouldn't be the same popularity-wise. But I love Capcom Classic Collection. It has so many good games. 1942, Gunsmoke, Street Fighter 2, 1942, amazing games. So I remember playing 1942 with my dad when it was just so fun. We had 2 controllers, we'd switch off, it was amazing. And that's that. Nothing much else to say, actually. Well, let's move on. Enter The Matrix, an amazing game. For The Matrix, that is. Like, think about it. Not many movie games were as good as they should have been. Like, sure, some of the Spider-Man ones are pretty good, and the Marvel games were pretty amazing, and some of the DC games were pretty good too. But some of the movie games other than that, like the superhero and other stuff, the movie games weren't as good. But Enter the Matrix cancels that out. However, Enter the Matrix is on lower on this for one reason, and that's because there's a game better than it. You can probably guess what it is, but I won't say yet. I'll probably give you a little quiz when it comes to that time. But Enter the Matrix was fun. It was like a kind of like a fighting 3D roam around open world adventure game. It was amazing. I loved how you could just fight certain people, and heck, in this game it's actually challenging to fight an agent, unlike in the other game how you can actually kill the agents there. But in this game you can't technically kill the agents because you're not Neo. You're Niobe and Ghost. And honestly, people are gonna cause some uproar when I say this, but I prefer to play as Niobe. I know Ghost has the really cool shooting car sections, but Niobe's car sections are super hard, but I like some of Niobe's boss fights a little better. Like, Ghost boss fight against, like, 2 helicopters, that's kind of a little too generic. Can't we have some, like, more agent fights in this game? Like, I love the fight with the agent in the plane with Niobe. That fight was the first fight, and it was still freaking amazing. Anyways, that's that, and let's move. Okay, I've said that way too many times now. Alright, let's just get going. Well, Rayman 2 Revolution. This is a bit of a questionable choice, but I will say why I like Rayman 2 Revolution. I like it how there was no other games like it at the time. Like, sure, you know, there was other games like Rayman 2 The Great Escape, but that's pretty much the same game. Rayman 2 Revolution is good because it's a third-person exploring shooter game. Also, it has a wide variety of levels. Sure, it doesn't have the most of a playability, but honestly, it's not much of a complaint to me. The only thing I wish there would have been replayable would be the boss fights, because some of the boss fights were amazing. Golem 13 was freaking amazing. And honestly, I love the bid tank battle. Too bad you can't replay those. You can only replay the Grogoth, or however you pronounce his name. I don't even know how to pronounce the final boss's name, and that's quite pathetic. Well, next! World Series of Poker for the PS2. This is my second game I actually ever owned, and honestly, it was pretty good. Except for one thing. It was kind of bland, and you see, poker games were pretty good, but honestly, they don't get much more different than that these days. But it was good for its time, I'll say that much. It's poker, so you probably know what I'm talking about. Let's move forward. They say if you want to do certain things, you gotta make it happen. That is why I love RPG Maker 3, because it's not necessarily a game, but not necessarily just a program. It's a mix, because you can make your own games, and there's quite a lot of customization. RPG Maker 3 I'll remember for one reason alone, and that was the fact that I had so many bright ideas when I first got this game. I had so many bright ideas. There were so many good concepts, there were so many good images. I just loved everything about RPG Maker 3. Except one thing. The music was so-so. I mean, like, typically with an RPG game, you want to have some pretty upbeat and kind of some lower tone relaxing music, but RPG Maker 3 didn't quite have what I describe relaxing. I'm like, sure, the menu theme's pretty relaxing, but it gets boring being looped for like 15 seconds over and over. But that's the only bad thing I can say about RPG Maker 3. Moving on! This game, Cabela's Alaskan Adventures. I love this game because it was so fun. It was one of the best shooters, or hunting shooter games that is, for the PS2. I liked Big Buck Hunter at the time I got this game, and honestly, I still like Big Buck Hunter. But, however, it's just not close enough to Big Buck Hunter. But then again, Big Buck Hunter was exclusively released in arcades and other devices, so it's a hunting game, you know what I mean. The Matrix Path of Neo. The game you've been waiting for ever since Enter the Matrix on the Celeste. This game I liked better not only because you get to play as Neo, but because it did some things better than Enter the Matrix did. For example, it was a little easier to control than Enter the Matrix, and some of the focus meter functions, etc. were a lot betterly done. But I really like it how you get to play as Neo instead of Ghost or Niobe. Sure, it's not as fun getting to play as Ghost or Niobe, you're having the choice, but Neo's the chosen one. Think about it, he's the main character of the entire series. He's the chosen one. So not playing as him kind of feels a little bland. It's pretty much the same as Enter the Matrix, but with different levels, but it's the same control concept, same genre, etc. However, it does lose some points for being quite hard at times. Especially when you have to react super fast to certain things. Also, it can take kind of long to beat this game. Like, really long. Dino Stalker. A game for the GunCon 2 that I absolutely so liked. Dino Stalker was good. I liked how it used the GunCon controls pretty well. But there's one thing that really brings Dino Stalker down, and that's the fact that of how hard it was. Like, sure, you could technically revive if you run out of health, you have the certain item, but if you run out of time, you don't get another chance. It's not like Time Crisis where if you run out of time in the second game and beyond, you only lose 1 health. In this game, you lose time, you dead. But I at least like the concept of fighting dinosaurs in kind of a very cool way. Also, it has some of my favorite bosses in any GunCon 2 game. However, it is not my favorite GunCon 2 game. There will be 2 other in here you'll see, and you'll see them rather soon, actually. One of them is number 1, I will say this though. However, Dino Stalker was amazing. The controls were pretty nice, the functions were nice, but it just was so hard to keep up with all the combos and keeping your time up. It just was so, well, confusing, because it's not like they give you a tutorial at the beginning of the game. They, like, just throw you in there. And sure, you can look at the controls, but it's not like they're going to give you a tutorial on what everything does. That's why I need the instruction manual, so getting this game used doesn't help. Kingdom Hearts 2. The better Kingdom Hearts game in my opinion. Honestly, Kingdom Hearts 1 was so low on this list because there were just better games afterwards. And also, Kingdom Hearts was good for its time, but honestly, it's not as good as the final mix of Kingdom Hearts, that is. So, Kingdom Hearts 2 is amazing. You basically play through kind of like a third-person sword fighting, like I said before. But it's even better because there's more functionality, more momentum controls, like you can move around better, you can control better. Also, it has some more, well, better characters. Like, you actually get to play as Riku in part of the game, and Mickey, so that's pretty cool. You also get to fight Xemnas, my favorite Kingdom Hearts final boss. Sure, he was super easy, but honestly, he was pretty cool. A 5 or 4 phase final boss fight, that is, was amazing. Which is quite long for a final boss. Final bosses are typically 2 to 3 phases, but 5 or 4? That's quite high up. Spy Hunter, a game I grew up with as a kid in the arcade. And honestly, my dad grew up with it too. I loved it, it was okay, and honestly it was pretty good, but I don't know, it just didn't feel as original as the original Spy Hunter. But at least it was still good, and they released a good remastered, re-graphic sized, you know, other stuff like that. Car shooting game where you play as a car and you just shoot everything. That's pretty cool, except Mario Kart kind of already did that. Next. God of War. Yeah, that's all I have to say. It was pretty good, but the bad stuff was that it was a little too graphic. That's all. But you probably don't know what God of War is, so let's just move on quickly. Twisted Metal Black. Oh my gosh, how I loved this game. It was the gem for Twisted Metal. Besides the original one, a couple others, but Twisted Metal Black was amazing. Not only was it the first Twisted Metal game, in my opinion, to have some of the better characters, but it also had some of the better concepts. Also, it's like Spider, where you're in a car and you're just going to destroy everything with cars mounted with tons of weapons. That's all I have to say. The rest you're going to have to look up yourself. Bully was alright, I have to admit. Bully was pretty good. It was an interesting concept for a video game. Also, it was not that bad. I know some people blow off the original and just go for the Scholarship Edition because of the extra content, but honestly, we wouldn't have the Scholarship Edition if it weren't for the original. Also, it has some of the best, concepts for a game about a school. Also, I think it's the most popular game that is about a school, mainly. And honestly, it's pretty good. I love Bully, and one thing I like about it even more is that it's basically like Grand Theft Auto, except not. It's like a more appropriate version of Grand Theft Auto. That's basically it. There's nothing more to say, honestly, so yeah. Time Crisis 2, the king of most light gun rail shooters. I love the Time Crisis series. I know it's not the most popular, but it's one of the better games for its type. I'm not sure it's a shooter game, but it's not like a shooter like Grand Theft Auto or Halo. It's like a rail shooter, an arcade shooter like Big Buck Hunter, where you don't move, all you do is reload and shoot. Honestly, I like that about Time Crisis because it makes it sometimes really confusing for people that I visit to use the right stick and the left stick, one to move, one to look. They find it so confusing, and I just okay, whatever. But Time Crisis really changes that because of how simple it is. I also like Time Crisis 2 because of its final boss. The final boss was a pretty epic fight against a nuclear frickin' satellite. I mean, no shit, that is epic. Fighting a nuclear satellite, that is some shit to remember there. I love Time Crisis 2. However, there's one more game that can beat it. That one Gun-Con 2 game that can beat it, that is. But let's find out what that is then. Just a little heads up. It is another Time Crisis game. That's your only hint. Yeah, but Time Crisis 2 had some amazing characters as well. I've never played Time Crisis 5, but I want to once they release it on a console release, so please, Namco, release Time Crisis 5 on a console. Please! I've never actually played Resident Evil 4, but I've played some of the other Resident Evil games, and they were pretty good. But I just know that this is one of the popular games on the PS2 because I looked it up on Google and the most popular games came first and Resident Evil was one of them, so I had to put it in here. I know it's a shooter, that's for sure, so it's not like I don't know nothing, and it's pretty epic. It's horror themed as well, so yeah, and it's also infamously known for its gore and famously known for that as well. Moving on. Silent Hill 2, quite the scary game this was. However, it was good, and it was pretty good for a scary game on the PS2, so yeah, it's pretty dang scary, that's for sure. But I love it just because of the concepts it has. I played parts of it, but I haven't actually played the full thing. Because, you know, it's my friend's game, and he lends it to me every now and then. Alright, let's move on to number 2. Final Fantasy X. I love this game. It was amazing. However, it does lose some points because I don't hear many people talking about it anymore. Like, people who are Final Fantasy fans, this one gets kind of forgotten. I mean, like, I see people talking about the good and the bad, but there's no, like, so-so in betweenish. I never hear anything from, like, Pro Jared or other pro gamers on YouTube, so I'm just gonna give this one an honorable mention. However, there is one game that's better than this, and it's gonna be quite questionable, but just go with me. I also love Auron as a character. He's pretty cool. I really liked him, and, you know, he was pretty badass, and, you know. But I love Final Fantasy X not only because it was good compared to some of the other Final Fantasy games, like Mystic Quest. Even though Mystic Quest was so-so, it just wasn't a Final Fantasy game. It wasn't worthy of the title of Final Fantasy. It just wasn't. It should have just been called Mystic Quest instead of Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. But even with the Final Fantasy taken away, it still would have been pretty boring. Anyways, Final Fantasy X was amazing. I love Auron, I love Tidus. Riku was pretty good, Yuno was amazing, and especially Wakka I liked. Because, you know, I'm typically a competitive guy and all. But that's that, and this is out to Final Fantasy fans. However, my next choice is quite questionable. Just play along with me for a second. Don't hate me for this. Now, don't hate me for this, people, but I love Time Crisis 3, and you also have to take this into consideration, and that's the fact that this isn't the best PS2 games. This is just the most underrated, kind of forgotten games. The gems that were not as popular, but they were still good, in a way. I love Time Crisis 3 because it really has a better, you know, it has better stuff in it than Time Crisis 2. It had multiple weapons, which Time Crisis 2 didn't have, except in certain sections when you gotta use the machine gun, but honestly, Time Crisis 3 lets you use any weapon whenever you want, so that's pretty nice, and you can switch between them freely, and there's ammo. That's pretty nice. Also, Time Crisis 3 has my favorite Time Crisis boss, and shockingly, it's the first boss. Yes, Victor Zahn, the guy in the giant black plane-like gunship, and honestly, I felt like he was one of the more better bosses in the series. He was pretty hard to defeat, especially with his gun. It was pretty accurate, and it was a submachine gun. So that's pretty unfair, having a rapid-fire gun that's pretty accurate most of the time. He also takes a freaking Shengun off his gunship and tries to use it on you with his bare hands. Now that isn't cool at all. Or is it? It's pretty cool how he can lift up a giant-ass Shengun off the chopper's wing, but it just doesn't feel that fair. However, it is fair, though, because, you see, he misses with it quite a bit. Like, he literally, it has a 100% chance to hit you if you don't dodge, but if he fires it wildly, like he can't control it, like he's trying to control a wild horse, he's not going to hit you with any of those shots. And honestly, it was pretty good to see Victor Zahn bringing him down. Also, the final boss, General Zod, was amazing. It felt so satisfying to bring him down. Especially when his big, major, evil plan was to launch giant nuclear missiles to where he's currently standing on a tiny island known as Lucano. 7 nuclear missiles on the same island he's on. Good plan, General Zod. But anyways, Time Crisis 3 was fun, and I loved how it was the best game for the GunCon 2. Also, it wasn't as bad as everybody says it was. Like, Time Crisis 4 was horrible. Let's all be honest. Time Crisis 4 was an embarrassment. But the only good thing I can say about Time Crisis 4 is the fact that it has my second favorite first boss in the entire series, and that's the very first boss against the guy that holds a anti-tank sniper rifle with one arm, and he has a grappling hook, and he can control these bugs that are called terramites. That are kind of like nanites. So that's pretty cool, but other than that, I have nothing more to say about Time Crisis 4. Time Crisis 3, though, was amazing. I think it's actually the best Time Crisis game for its time, because, you know, it's a lot better than 2, that's for sure. 1, it was pretty close with, but I still consider Time Crisis 3 better because of its functionality. 4 was just a downright embarrassment, and 5 I haven't played because it was exclusively released in arcades, and that is that. Anyways, Time Crisis 3, amazing game, but it wasn't as amazing as Final Fantasy X. I'll be honest, this isn't a best list, but Final Fantasy X was just underrated, in my opinion. Like, sure, this isn't the list of the best games. You do have to remember that. This is the list of the most underrated games. I know Final Fantasy X might be popular in some people's eyes, but I just don't see it pop up that much on, well, the big YouTubers channel. Anyways, that's that, and have a good one. Or two.